I really, maybe call me psycho, call me take locked. I don't care. Jeff Wilson, even though he didn't log a snap this week, at only 22% rostered, I think he does deserve to be on more rosters because we've just seen it before. We've seen 3 touchdown games in the championships. We've seen him lead last year, the team in rushing touchdowns, 10th in the NFL on rushing touchdowns, despite only playing 11 games. There is high touchdown upside here. Eli Mitchell, I got to say in the same breath, has seen now 89% of the running back carries last week. That was a season high. He's seen 80% in 4 of his 5 starts, but also saw 12% target share last week. Like Eli Mitchell might go down as one of the best waiver wire pickups. In fact, he will already based on what he's done. We know Cordell Patterson's the pickup of the year. Eli Mitchell going to trail him no matter what happens here. This is a slight back that has had rib injuries, arm injury. Like he's had some things and bruises popping up here. And I think, honestly, when he misses a little time, Jeff Wilson gets the reins. I don't know that he'll look back, and certainly for that playoff schedule, so juicy. So if you're looking more forward thinking, that 49ers playoff schedule is as juicy as it comes. I think Jeff Wilson, just like he was last year, season winner last year, history, endless loop. We could see it yet again. So I despite this awful week, I even used him, and it was just disgusting. I think we can move past it. In fact, Shanahan after the game said he only had 3 practices. We didn't want to use him if we didn't have to. We didn't have to. I think moving forward with a little more practice time, getting the legs under him, every report was he looks like a beast in practice. I think we're going to see more Jeff Wilson moving forward. Shanahan's lulling us to sleep again, folks. Backfield that you'll never know, similar to Kyle Shanahan, the Pats, but consistently turning out value is the Pats as well, just like the Shanahan backfield. Rhamondre Stevenson, he'd be, as long as he's playing, one of my favorite ads of this week. 10 carries, 62 yards, looking like a steamroller that we saw in the preseason. Also hauling in 42 yards for the air, so over 100 scrimming yards for this guy. Love to see it. Absolute bruiser. But he got a concussion, as did, and the reason why all these guys are on the list, Damian Harris also saw a head injury here. He had the lowest share of running back carries of the year, 45%, Damian Harris. 16 opportunities for Harris, 12 for Stevenson, and then 10 for Bolden, who also had a solid day in his own right. 8 carries, 54 yards, in addition to 2 catches for 27. Those 81 scrimmage yards were a season high. So he set a season high. Stevenson set a season high. All these guys looking quite valuable in this offense. So moving forward, I think, whoever it is going to be, given how involved these backs are in the entire offense with Mac Jones leading the charge right now, I could see Bolden being a top 5 back coming up this week. So ultimately, keep your eye on this backfield. Sorry, my charger is, I don't know what's happening here. I hope this doesn't die on me, but we will see. It looks like it's plugged in. Wrong. Plugged in. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now the charger's plugged in, folks. Here we go. So Patriots backs have been such a meaningful part of the offense. We could continue to see it. Do want to emphasize a guy that got dropped in a ton of leagues when Judy came back. And yet, since Judy returned, Tim Patrick's led the team in back-to-back weeks in receiving yards. This role has been consistent, even with Judy there. He actually had a season-high 16.5 half PPR points this last week. Now, granted, Tim Patrick, 83% of their routes compared to 80% for Judy, 89% for Sutton. It's Sutton that's taking the monstrous hit here. 1 of 2 targets, 9 yards last week. Brutal for him. He's averaging 5.5 points per game with Judy in the lineup. Just awful stuff. Meanwhile, Patrick, 4 catches, 85 yards, and a TD. A week after leading the team with over 60 yards. He's been above double digits in all but 2 games this year, Tim Patrick. Nice and steady. It's not sexy, but it's getting the job done. So if you need a wide receiver streamer, he gets Philly this week, which you got to imagine Slay goes on either Sutton or Judy. I think Patrick, honestly, is better when he's in the third role because he feasts on number 3 corners, one of the most underrated receivers in the league, in my opinion. Right up to last year, still one of the top guys on contested catch rate, and just got a nice nose for the end zone. I think after you got Philly, then the bye, so not the best. Then you got the Chargers, a good defense as well. But when you get the third corners, I don't think it really matters. And you got a nice stretch run with Kansas City, Detroit, and Cincy. So whether an injury happens or whether he continues to feast on number 3 corners, I think Tim Patrick A nice solid little stream there for you at wide receiver, even with Judy back. In fact, it might even be better with Judy there. And then last couple here, DeSean Jackson, had to mention this guy, worth about 3% of your fab, maybe more if you're having a good feeling in the gut, because the guy can still burn. We saw him get deep with the Rams quite a few times. He was, averaging a team high 14.7 yards per target, 202 catches, 143 yards, and a touchdown on his 7 targets of 20-plus yards downfield. And now he goes to Derek Carr offense, which historically is very conservative. Carr actually leads the league in 20-plus yard attempts downfield with 46 of them. Bryan Edwards has done nothing with it. Ruggs was decently solid with it, but we know obviously he is gone. I think Jackson could walk right in to a deep passing offense as one of the top options. Not bad at all. The guy has averaged the last 2 seasons. Only him and Ruggs are 2 of 7 guys to average 17 yards or more average depth of target with over 30 targets these last 2 seasons. And Jackson's graded higher on both seasons. Could see this guy stepping right in. We all have seen it. DeSean Jackson with a chip on his shoulder and a deep ball roll. I think he could definitely do some damage. And last guy of the top 15 here is Dan Arnold. Yet again, another week leading the team in receiving yards, in targets for the Jags. It wasn't anything that sexy this past week. What did he end up putting up? Like 60 yards, Dan Arnold? 60 yards, 4 catches. It's just like he's making plays. A beautiful catch along the sideline. Ultimately, looking solid each and every week. And it's been coming against pretty tough matchups. And certainly at least last week against the Jags, one of the toughest matchup against every position. The schedule does soften up these next few weeks. See Dan Arnold, if you miss out on Pat Fry, low, high-end tight end 2. Let's call it that. I don't even want to call him a tight end 1. I do want to toss out just one quick bonus name, an honorable mention. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones as that post-Beckham hype sleeper. I mean, he has been hyper efficient every time he gets work. We see Donovan Peoples-Jones absolutely smash. And yet again this week, even though he only ran 16 routes behind Jarvis Landry, behind Anthony Schwartz, he was the deep ball guy, the lid lifter, 86 yards on 2 catches and a score. I think that's going to be routine. Him and Baker have some nice chemistry. When Baker doesn't have to force it to somebody or ensure someone's getting their deep targets, he's at his best. I think every other week or so, we're going to see one of these deep strikes to Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPJ, stepping into the OBJ role and doing it better because Baker just loves the guy. And last, just Hail Mary stash, I think Donta Foreman. Promoted to the active roster after Adrian Peterson, certainly outplayed, outsnapped by both Jeremy McNichols, Adrian Peterson. I guess I shouldn't say outplayed, though, because we saw Foreman average 5.8 yards per attempt, far better than the 2.1 we saw from Adrian Peterson. McNichols did solid with the receiving work here. But I don't think either McNichols or Peterson are just going to disappear. I think Foreman, it would take an injury to one or the other. Peterson would obviously be the more valuable injury for Foreman. There is a chance at some point, though, in one of this offenses that seems to be finding its groove, a team that seems to be finding its groove more than that, I could see Foreman coming into some late stash value as the youngest back there, one of the 87th percentile speed scores. There's a little bit of juice there. And speaking of speed, Hail Mary streamer, maybe Matt Breida, 0% rostered. If Zach Moss's concussion lingers, they're facing the Jets. We just saw what Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines were able to do. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills try to reshape their identity a little bit, certainly at least to fit this matchup and pepper the running backs a little bit more. So don't be shocked if we see a sneaky good game out of Breida. Don't go and get him on your waiver wire this week. Right now. Get somebody more valuable or tougher to pick up. But ultimately, don't be shocked if Breida ends up going nuts. I guess I should mention, too, Justin Fields after last night, 18 points, had 90 PFF grade, his highest of the season, was the highest quarterback of this past week. Seems to be finally, like almost every play the announcers were saying, like every snap he seems to be gaining confidence. He's now had 20 and 18 across his last 2 by far season highs in fantasy points. Fresh off that bye, don't be shocked if that offense continues to mold to his strengths. And he picks it up down the stretch with that upside, that Konami upside we always rave about. We could see more and more Justin Fields stepping in there. Probably worth a stash for those of you that might need a quarterback for your stretch. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments. Check out some more videos. and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.